Yo, what's up guys? Before we get into the actual build guide, I want to show you guys a bit of gameplay. I'm going to show you guys a bit of bosses and a little bit of the clear speed potential, because this build has been an absolute blast. It's actually so much more one of my favorite builds so far, because I haven't dismantled it yet, and it's the end of the league already, you know? I've actually remade and dismantled this build about 2 or 3 times already, because I just can't seem to quit it, and I always want to go back to it, you know? But anyway, I want to give a little quick shout out to Splits, who comes to my stream often. He basically gave me a crap ton of money, just like make a build, and I made this build, and then I ignored his money, and then he threw it down my throat. So because of that, there's 2 versions of this build. Just let you guys know, in the POB below, there's going to be a expensive and a non-expensive version. They both work perfectly fine, and the expensive version is not needed at all in order for this build to function. However, just let you know the reasons why there's 2 of them. One is obscenely expensive, while the other ones you can probably do it as a league starter, because a lot of the items in this build, they're not really required other than really a Depth's Harp, which you can get early on. And then you can upgrade it to a Depth's Opus, and then of course later on you can get the Asenath Chant, which is actually not required, but it is a very, very good, almost best in slot option for your helmet. It can be very expensive early on in the league, so I don't really recommend you guys to buy it. If you don't have the money early on, just save up until you get it, you know? But either way, you can use any other helmet, and then you put, you know, your Froth Bolt into your 6th link with your Ice Nova. Your single target won't be as high, but you know, for the budget, you clear speed very, very well early on in the game, and for very, very cheap. So if you're thinking about doing this for a league starter, you can and very well could. So with that, I'll let you guys enjoy the show. Okay, now that we're here, let's go into the build guide very, very quickly. I don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time. Let's get this shit done with. Let's go. Okay, first thing, the character's name. Who the fuck wants to buy my gloves at this point in time? Bro. Oh yeah, like, you serious? There's only like 6 days left in his league. I don't even know. Okay, so moving on. The character's name is Asbowcock. He's an assassin. He uses a bow. It's cast on crit. I guess you can probably figure it out yourself, but if you need me to explain it, that's why I chose that name. Moving on to our gear. So what I recommend you guys pick up is a Depth's Harp. The way the cast on crit works is you had a hit. If that hit crits, then it'll cast a spell. Because the spell does the most of our damage, the spell needs to have crit chance, and your attacks needs to have crit chance because they will proc the spell. So you have to build both attack and spell crit. Very important, that's why you pick Assassin. On top of that, you have to hit multiple times because cast on crit can happen 6 times. You can cast a spell 6 times within a 1 second because it has an eternal cooldown. So you need to either have a lot of attack speed or do a hit that has a lot of hits or a combination of both. Since we don't have too much attack speed because Depth's Harp is a freaking shit for attack speed and it's a good budget option, we go for a skill that uses a lot of hits, Barrage or Blast Rain. Barrage sucks because it has terrible aim and you have to be super close. We use Blast Rain because it is an AoE spell. Skill, my opinion. Not my opinion, I'm sorry. Factuals. And then you also have got Rain of Arrows, which we use for our clear. It's not as concentrated, so it affects the entire, or not affects the attacks, the entire pack. So it's much better for clear speed, as you probably already saw in the gameplay. But just so you know, we use a Depth's Opus. You can also use a Depth's Harp if you're doing this for a League starter. The 1 additional arrow means absolutely really nothing. It is just a better option. We don't care about the fizz, it's just the additional arrow. It gives 100% group multi, which does affect your spells. And all you really want on this is basically your 5-link Rain of Arrows clear setup, which is going to be Rain of Arrows, Link to Hypothermia, Energy Shield Leech because this is an hybrid build, Ice Nova, and then Cast on Crit. And then for the last one, I put Phase Run because since we are Assassin, Elusive does not work. We already have Elusive as an Assassin. So as you can see here, this is our clear speed. If you have the MCX, it is so fucking good. Alright, moving on to our quiver. This quiver is super expensive. Don't blame me, I didn't want it in the build. It has decent attack speed, decent life, but its main notable is that socket, so you want to put Frenzy, because if Frenzy hits, then it'll give you a Frenzy Charge with Curse on Hit and Frostbite. So what happens is you attack, and it shoots a Frenzy out, giving you some buffs. But it's stupid expensive. For a budget option, just get a Spike Point Quiver with some crit chance, attack speed, and life. Try to get some crit multi, and if you have an open suffix, craft elemental damage of, if you dealt a critical strike recently. Very good, and it's global. It's not, do not get elemental damage of attack skills. It does not work. Moving on to our boots. Just get res, life, and movement speed as much as possible. You can get tailwind if you have mad money. Alright, then our gloves. For your gloves, you want any stats you need. I went for dexterity. You don't need that much, but that's what I got. You want life and res. If you have an open prefix, craft some damage, but look for an open suffix so you can craft aspect as a spider. What you need is to get into the market, buy Venomous to the first of the night. It's a little bestiary thing. You get it, you buy it, go to your menagerie, right click it, add it to your collection. Now you have the Beastcraft. What this Beastcraft allows you to do is craft aspect as a spider into any gear, rare gear slot that has an open suffix. My gloves are one of those, and the only ones really available because everything is dealt with, you know, resistances and damage. So I put it on my gloves. It can be anywhere, literally your rings or anything, right? And once you buy it, it costs usually 30 to 40 C. It might be more expensive early in the league, but it's not necessary, so don't harper too much on it. Once you get it, kill the damn spider, and then boom, you have it on your gear, and that's it. And it's now basically like a herald for 25% of your mana retained. Since we are, you know, a Eldritch Battery, so our ES is our mana, we can reserve all our mana. That's why you run so many auras, right? So on our boots, you want basically Steel Skin with cast and damage taken. Steel Skin level 14, cast and damage taken level 9. So when you take about 1,200 damage, you get 1,000 damage of buff, right? Then Flame Dash for movement speed, because Blink Arrow sucks dick, and we have a lot of cast speed in this build. And then War Banner for more accuracy, since we have to worry about our accuracy in this build because it does affect our critical strike chance. And War Banner for only 10% gives you increased accuracy rating. Very good. Now you don't have to get accuracy in your gear as often. And for my gloves, where I have all my auras and light at level 3, right? Precision. If you don't have enough mana, just lower the level of precision. Herald Device. And then Zultry. You're probably not going to have Aspect Spider until later, so just leave it at level 20 and then just drop Aspect Spider until you get it later, right? And then moving on from that, you wear belts. This belt is absolutely disgusting, costs a lot of money. It's in the expensive version, right? Try to look for cold damage, try to get a Stygian Vice, but you're looking for life and res primarily. Then craft whatever damage. A budget option would be something like this. You get 95 life, a little bit of res, and then a crafted prefix damage, because elemental damage of attack skills does not work. Keep that in mind. Right, for your Abyssal Jewel, just life. You want to look for life and attack speed if you dealt a critical strike recently. That's what the primary mods you're looking for. Right? And then anything else, resistances, and then cold damage while holding a two-handed weapon. A bow is a two-handed weapon, and it's probably be the cheapest option. That's what I highly recommend. Now, the important part is your helmet. Your helmet, this is the best in slot. What you want is Asenath's Chant. It's basically an upgraded version of Asenath's circlet, and basically is when you trigger the socket spell when you attack with a bow. So when I attack with a bow, no matter if I crit or not, it can be anything, I cast a spell. You do not want two spells in this setup because then it alternate between both. As you guys see in here, if I pull Frostbite in here, then just do ball, Frostbite, fall, Frostbite. Since it's an Ice Nova build, when you cast a Frostbolt, Ice Nova is casted after. If it crits, it's going to cast on the Frostbolt's location. The more Frostbolts on screen, the better it is for your Ice Nova. So you do not want to harper the amount of Frostbolts on your screen. However, there is a little bit of a sacrifice, and I'll explain it to you right now. I did put Frost Bomb. The reason for that is it basically lowers the enemy's resistance by 25, and it has its own cooldown. The helmet has its own cooldown, about 0.3 seconds, right? Or milliseconds, something like that. You can do it 3 or 4 times a second. Frost Bomb has a 2.5 seconds. So what happens is when Frost Bomb is casted, during that cooldown, the helmet acts like the skill does not exist, only casting Frostbolt. So it always keeps the debuff up while not really harping your single target. It's really cool. I highly recommend. Now, the reason why I have 3 projectiles for my Frostbolt is because I use a very cheap, you get it while leveling, in Act 5, I believe, Frozen Trail, which gives you 2 additional projectiles for your Frostbolt, and you don't have to lower the damage of your Frostbolt using LMP or GMP because it does a lot of damage, honestly. We're talking like easily 300 to 400k per hit with all your gear decked out, of course. If I didn't say it, the helmet is Energy Shield Leech, Frostbolt, Hypothermia, and Frost Bomb, right? Now for your body armor, I actually bought this for 11 Chaos. I exalted it, so don't worry about the Redeemer. I literally bought it for about 11C with the maximum life and the resistances, and then all I did was 6-link it myself and then crafted this for an open prefix, gain 10% of your maximum life as maximum ES. This is absolutely insane. As you guys can see here, I have 4,700 HP and 1,700 ES. When I take this off, I lost 1,300 energy shield, and since we have Mind Over Matter with Eldritch Battery, that ES is part of our life. So this thing gives me about 1,300 life, technically ES and mana. It's a combination of all three. I'm sorry, I can't explain it better than that. So I highly recommend you look for an energy shield base. Involve Regalia the highest, probably. I mean, not probably, ideally, right? With some life and resistances. And please look for an open prefix and craft this. It costs only 4 chaos. Early on in the league, it's probably going to be more rare, but you know, you'll be doing lower tier maps until you get to the higher tier content. You won't need that much life, right? And what you linked here is basically our single target setup. You have Cast on Crit, Linked with Energy Shield Leech, of course, Concentrated Effect, Ice Nova, Blast Rain, and then Hypothermia. Blast Rain is a single target because it's very concentrated, so more than likely it's going to hit everything. Blast Rain adds 5 additional arrows, so it's 6 because of the base. And then with Death's Opus, you have 8. So you're going to hit 8 times per cast, and since our attack speed is roughly 2 to 3 times a second, with all our buffs up in Elusive, it's really, really good. Right? For your spells, I highly recommend you try to spend some money and get a level 21 gem, because every gem level adds a chunk of damage that's actually very substantial. Right, moving on to your rings. The ring you want is a Circle of Fear. What you're really looking for is Herald Device has 39.8% reduced mana reserved, and then cold damage while you're affected by Herald Device. Herald Device controls basically the explosion and how awesome the build feels. So for that very, very reason, I highly recommend you get one of these, and allows all the auras to fit. It's probably going to cost a lot of money early in the league, so just get a ring with some damage until you can fit it. Again, you don't need it. You're probably not going to have Asp Spider early on, so you'll probably fit anyway. Right? Just manage your auras here and there. Your accuracy being 100% is probably the most important thing, so please drop damage over the accuracy. It's very important. Right? And then I did the smart move and got global accuracy rating as the implicit because I needed more accuracy. Right? And then here's a cool thing, right? On our second ring, we have Malachai's Artifice. Malachai's Artifice gives you the gem linked into it, Elemental Equilibrium. Elemental Equilibrium, the way it works is you hit with a skill of a certain element, and then the enemy that's hit with that element gets resistances for that element. So if it gets hit with cold, it gets additional cold, about 25% increased cold res, and then loses minus 50 of the other elementals that did not get hit by. So if you hit with cold, it gets additional cold res, and then it loses fire and lightning res, about minus 50. Since we have Herald Device and it adds cold damage to both our spells and our attacks, this makes a big downside, because that means anything we link here is going to have cold damage, and it's going to increase the cold res of the monster. But there's a cool catch. If we use Elemental Hit, which can only do one element at a time, no matter how much added of another element you do, all you have to do is get a combat focus, and it says Elemental Hit cannot choose cold. So no matter what, our Elemental Hit is only going to choose fire and lightning. That means that this little ring setup at the beginning of a fight is going to lower the enemy's resistance by minus 50. And since it is casted with Frostbolt at the same time, because of our Asenath Chant, at the beginning of the fight, you're lowering their res by minus 75. Very good. It lasts about 4 seconds. So I highly recommend it, and this ring is super budget cheap. You can get it early on in the game, and I'll probably walk you through all the early bosses like nothing. butter, my friend, butter. Best in slot amulet, Pandemonious, gives you a crap ton of penetration, gives you cold damage, a little bit of res, and ideally for your allocation you want Heart of Ice, but you can do Arcane Potency, which gives you a little bit of crit multi and crit chance up here. Heart of Ice is the best because it gives you penetration, cold damage, and energy shield leech, right? But you don't need an allocation until you have the money for it, obviously, right? Now this costs a lot of money, so for the time being you can just get a ring like this, or amulet, sorry, and you want spell damage, crit multi, and life. And then any stats, you're probably going to need strength and dexterity. And then if you have an open suffix, craft whatever res, attack speed, or cold damage, in my case, is what I crafted if you were going to use this thing. Quick note, cooldown recovery affects your how many spells you can cast. So essentially, if you have at least 12% increase, well, I guess increased cooldown recovery, you can go from 6 to 7 spells per second. However, it costs a lot of money. I did manage to exalt my boots, the one that I had before, with a really crazy exalt orb, and I got cooldown recovery, and they sold from, I bought it for 30 C and it sold for 20 exalts. Do not overpay for it. It is not required. I took it out from this build and still massacred everything. So if you do want to go for it, I highly recommend just getting an Awaken Cast on Crit once it gets down in price, because it does give you at level 2 over 12% increased cooldown and recovery. Otherwise, you can craft it in your belt if you do have an open slot, but you're going to need the craft, you're going to pay somebody for it, and if you're going to get a Stygian Vice, it might cost you a lot of money. So if you have a cheaper base belt, you can craft it on that instead. There's many options for that. Moving on to our flask, you want a Quicksilver for movement speed, Life Flask with bleed, Cinder Swallow with a crit chance. This costs a lot of money. Since the enemy has to be ignited, right? Blast Rain, as you guys can see here, is a fire skill. You know, it doesn't matter how much fire damage is doing, because it is fire, it's going to ignite, so they're always going to get that damage debuff. Your clear speed, all you have to do is add a jewel with a little bit of added fire, and it'll ignite anything as well. I don't have one, but it's not that big of a deal for clear speed. I only really do it for our single target. If not, you can just use a normal silver flask with some immunity to curses like this, which I don't have, which I do swap with my freeze one. A Wise Oak with penetration, obviously make sure your cold res is your highest, right? And then moving on, you want a diamond flask with a immunity to freeze, ideally. Immunity to freeze and bleed are the two most important ones. And then if you have a curse immune map, try to put an immunity to curse, or just re-roll the map, obviously. You want increased duration or somewhere along the lines of reduced charges used. Moving on to our passive skill tree. Now we are an assassin, so the first thing you guys want to pick up is Mistwalker. Mistwalker gives you Elusive, and it gives you movement speed and cast speed early on in the game, so it helps you clear through the acts very quickly and get to maps quicker. So yes, it doesn't give you damage, but you want to get to maps as quick as possible, so this is the best way to do it. Then get Unstable Fusion for Power Charge Sustain, and then Deadly Infusion gives you that massive crit chance. And then get Opportunistic. That gives you a lot of damage for bosses and a movement speed. You get a crap ton of movement speed from this setup, so you're going to be zooming through maps very, very nicely. Then you want to come up here, pick up all this little elemental damage, Trickery, and get the life and coordination. The crit, come down here, get the life res and AoE, life and hybrid ES, which is very good. Spell crit. Snowforge, do not pick this up until you have a decent amount of crit. Do not pick Eldritch Battery until you have a decent amount of ES. Right? Probably not until you get your Revolver Regalia or something like that. So you just pick life and ES hybrid. Right? Then Project of Perfection. Here's a cool thing. We do have power charges. So, and then you want to pick this node that gives you spell damage or power charge. We have 5. I didn't want to go more than 5 because the more you have, the longer it's going to take for you to get the +2 base crit. If you look at Assassin, it tells you you only get the 2 base crit while you're at your maximum. So if you have too many power charges, you're going to take longer to ramp up. I do not like that, so I only went with 5. Right? Project of Perfection is really good if you want to pick it up along the way, but it's based off your mana. So if you don't have a lot of mana, do not pick it up until later. Now, Tempered Mind is a really cool jewel. It costs absolutely nothing unless you get some stupid corruption, of course. And it gives you accuracy per tell intelligence not allocated. I only have 3 not allocated here, and because of that, it gives me 375 accuracy, which helps a lot with getting a lot of gear choices for freaking cheap, because you don't have to worry about accuracy. However, if this is not enough accuracy for you, do go through the bottom down here, get this little Deep Wisdom, Deep Intelligence, and Dexterity, and just drop this and Project of Perfection until later. And then these 2 nodes right here will give you an extra 250 accuracy, right? The damage is probably worth the trade-off if your accuracy is not capped. And then you can pick it up later once you can. There's a lot of options until you get the better gear, of course. Right? Then get the AoE, get the life node, get the spell crit, get the life and mana, get Frostwalker, gives you cold damage and a little bit of resistances. Come down here, get the life. This jewel socket is combat focus. Of course, do not use this until you have that ring, the Malachi's Artifice. I forgot to note here, once you go Snowforge, down here, probably pick up this life node before you start going on to the left, and pick up Frozen Throw as quick as possible, because you're probably going to use Frostbolt for your clear speed at the beginning of the league. At the beginning of your character while you're leveling, right? Once you get the additional projectiles, you'll be zooming because it does pierce through everything. Mind over matter, same thing. Do not pick it up until you have a lot of ES and or mana. Probably ES because you're going to do Elder's Battery at the same time. So you probably want to pick those two up in conjunction, right? And then get a Retribution for your damage, and just for your pathing. Life, Precision is really nice, helps you with your accuracy. It gives you movement speed and cast speed, which is really good. Attack speed, cast speed is good for Flame Dash, I guess, and a little bit of dexterity. Very, very nice, and it's worth picking up to 2 points. Honestly, it saved me a freaking F-ton of currency, right? Then like Divinity, damage, life. The Watcher's Eye you want to look out for is gain Arcane Surge for 4 seconds while you have Zeltry, and basically when you create Consecrated Ground. We do not get Arcane Surge in our links because it requires you to spend mana, and since we have ES's mana, it doesn't work. This is the one way around it, and it gives you 10% more damage because it's a level 1 Arcane Surge, I'm assuming. But it doesn't cost too much, but of course pick it up later until it's cheaper, because it might be expensive at the beginning of the league. So just use a normal jewel with some maximum life, increased damage. It can be spell damage, it can be cold damage, area damage. You get the gist of it. The other mod here, of course, is super expensive, is critical strike chance against enemies on consecrated ground. This jewel is super expensive. It's in the expensive version. All you're really looking for the cheap version is the Arcane Surge, well, for 4 seconds with Zeltry. The other one is not needed, but is there for more damage, right? Sovereignty here is to give us a lot more aura sustainability, so we can fit all our auras without having to spend a stupid amount of money on a level 4 Enlightened. Even with a level 4, I don't know if you can fit it, but it's up to you if you want to test it out. And it's give you aura effectiveness, since we do have a lot of auras, it matches up really, really well. I did not need this other 4%, so instead went with the increased effect of auras. But if you do need the 4%, go for it instead. You can just switch between these two as you need the mana. And then more life up here. And that pretty much covers the tree. For your Pantheon, because your life is based off your your stun ability, your ability for you to be stunned is based off your life, right? And we are a hybrid, we only have about a 4,700 life, so you might get stunned often. If that is the case, go for Soul of Brine King. You'll get stunned less often. Very good. Otherwise, I say go for Soul of Naris for movement speed, for clear speed, or Soul of Akari to get reduced damage from damage over time. Now, if you're fighting Awakener, pick up Soul of Verslatha, which I just did. He gives you life last during the downtime, so while he's doing a stupid tornado phase and you're just sitting there, like hitting yourself, pick this up and your life last will refill on its own, so you're not hitting yourself. But otherwise, during mapping, I prefer this because it does reduce chaos damage. It does bypass our ES, going straight for our life. And it makes us immune to poison, which means it doesn't hamper our ES region. And then for your bandit choice, you want a Lyra. Now, very quickly, for you guys' convenience, if you go into the POB links that I left down below in the description, you guys can see that in the bottom left corner, I added a few different trees. This is end game, mid game, early game. Here, I'll show you basically the skill tree progression as you level up. You can see how many points I put into it, for level 33, yada yada, right? And you can see how I chose my points first over other ones. Which ones you want to take in priority? It might help you level up during the new league if you want to play Delirium, but it's there for your sake. So I hope you enjoy it. I pretty much think that covers everything. So I'll move on to the other Leo who will do the outro. Peace out. Well, guys, we made it to the end of the build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed everything that you saw. If you have any questions, though, please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer. I apologize for not posting as many videos as often. I'm kind of very busy right now with my IRL shit, and I'm still trying to keep my stream schedule intact, but I do stream every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at twitch.tv/Kogaras. This is only a temporary thing, keep in mind. So once the new League Delirium comes out, I'll be going ham at that as well. Though it's still kind of in my busy peak. But once that tapers off, I'll be going right at it again and try to post as many build guides as possible. I'm always trying to look for improvements and stuff like that. So I'll catch you guys later into the next build guide. And I hope you guys will be there to see it. Peace out.